May 18th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the NinjaTrader 8 platform on the 2000 tick chart. You go down to the descriptions below, you can see where I took my trades as well as where I thought I saw setups. Just quick disclaimer, if you've been watching, you know that I'm not going to proclaim any expertise on this. This is mainly just for my own archiving and so I can go back and study my trades. So whether I saw a setup or not, if you didn't see a setup or if you think my setup's wrong, then just be aware. This is based off of my experience and I'm not trying to sell anything and I'm not trying to teach anything. It's more for myself. So it looked like in the pre-market, I drew the pre-market highs and lows right here, and I extended the channel out. And very quickly after the market opened, well, not very quickly, but shortly after the market opened, about 30 to 40 minutes later, it broke out of that trading range and just kind of oscillated back and forth. And I found potentially a second trading range at the end of the day. Respected it kind of twice down here, and then it broke out and then went back up and respected it twice at the top. It was kind of some mixed trading. I didn't find too many setups, even though there's some really big, nice swings. There weren't too many high probability setups that I felt comfortable with. And right around, I think toward about 11:43-ish, I had some issues that I had to take care of. So between 11:43 to the end, I wasn't available to trade. But I did go back and look at the charts to see if I saw any potential setups, and I really didn't quite see any setups. So I'll show you my two trades. There was one green. The first one was green and the second one was red. And then afterwards, I didn't quite feel comfortable finding any other potentially good high probability setups. There were some possible trades. And unfortunately, I missed them. So let's get into the charts. So this is what the pre-market looked like. Now the pre-market is just continuing from yesterday. It looked like it was just kind of oscillating. I don't trade anything in the pre-market because I'm not around. And this gray area is pre-market. Okay, on the market open, let's just go ahead and zoom in. It made a new low. That's where I drew out the pre-market highs and lows for potential trading range. Made a new low. There's a first entry short. There's a second entry short here, but it's right at the open and the signal bar isn't very good, so I skipped it. And plus, I'm very wary of taking any trades right at the market open on the first minute because typically there's people that trade the ES all the time or before the market officially opens regular trading hours. However, there are also a lot of other traders that have their orders set up and execute right at the market open on regular hours. So there could be a lot of stuff going on the first couple of minutes. Because if you look at this is 6:30, this candle is also 6:30, this candle is also 6:30, and finally this candle is 6:31. So in the span of 4 candles, that's only about 2 minutes. And then this fifth candle is still 6:31. So right here, there's a lot of stuff going on. And even though it's congested today, nothing says it couldn't spike up rapidly or spike down rapidly. So it's always, in my opinion, best to just stay away because I've learned well enough to stay away from those things. There was one piece of economic data that came out at 5:30 Pacific Standard, was the unemployment claims. It looked like it didn't really move the market too much because it was already on its way down. Okay, so then prices when they opened, they stayed within a trading range. And I didn't see any good setups. It breaks out of the trading range, it hits the midline, and I do see two measured legs up, one here and a potential second leg up here. So it makes a measured move. Now, when I was looking for the measured move, I was looking at this new low, first entry short. There's a second entry short, and at the time, this is a decent signal bar. It's bouncing off the midline, but I just felt it wasn't quite ready because it could also be a failed breakout to come back down, or it could be two legs up. But it's nothing to say that, it made two legs up, so you would think it's probably going to continue one big leg down, but it's also potentially in a trading range. So I wasn't 100% sure, so I just did nothing. I didn't plan and I didn't mark this trade. Prices continue, so it breaks up. So this is potentially a failed second entry because if you look at a big visual, one leg up, pullback, kind of consolidates, a second leg up. Now it hits and makes this measured move. You think it might come back down, but there's no real setup. And sure enough, it kind of starts spiking down. If you had taken a trade here, you would have gotten a scalp, but I didn't see enough convincing evidence to take a trade. Prices continue chopping. I did have the smaller trading range here. Didn't really do much. I saw this consolidation at the top, and I do see the first setup. is a second entry long, a new high here, first entry long, chops around, makes technically the high there. So the first entry long completes here, then it pulls back. And I'm thinking this potentially could be a second entry. It's a pretty good signal bar. It is the first break of the trend channel, which, let's see, I don't have it drawn here, but I had something like this. And at one time, I also thought if this was a wider channel, but it looked too shallow. So I had something like that at one point, and I thought this is the first break of the channel, might test a new high. But let's just say I had this. Well, let's just go with this for now because I did have this. And I thought, okay, it's the first break of the trend channel. Looks like it would have moved up, but I figured it could also be a failed second entry long because it closed below the EMA, even though the EMA is flat right now. I haven't confirmed 100% that it's in this trading range, so it could have been a little bit higher up here. And so it's a failed breakout, second entry long, first breakout. So it was potentially, a good signal bar, and I just wanted to get a confirmation lower high. I get a lower high here, but it just looks like it's not that great. Excuse me. I wanted a higher low, and there is one here, but it's kind of like chopping within this tiny range, so I felt unsure. So there was a second entry long here. It looks like you would have gotten just barely your scalp out if you just went for 1 point. And if you didn't, this would have stopped you out for sure. Chop sideways, moves up, breaks out of this trading range, goes into this trend channel. I see this, I draw a support here, and I draw the top here. I actually drew the top first as a resistance, and then I drag this down to create the part of the channel here. So this bottom part of the channel hasn't been confirmed yet, but this kind of confirms right here. It's close enough. Prices continue moving up. Breaks out. It has an overshoot. So I do see a first entry long. I do see a potential second entry long. Now this signal bar is kind of mixed. I say it's mixed because it closed at the highs or near the highs, but kind of toward the neutral. But it's also closed below the open. So it's kind of like a bearish bar. And overall price action is bullish. So I was debating if I go long here, price action is bullish. It's potentially bouncing off the bottom of this trading trend channel. And I'm thinking this is the first break of this larger trading range. So to go long, I'm going to assume it's going to bounce off, but it could also break down through. And since there's a small overshoot here, I'm reluctant to take a second entry long after this overshoot because typically an overshoot is going to cause a break to the other side. So factoring in the pros is, potentially a second entry long is enough room to the top, but then also and it's a bullish uptrend. But then as the first break, it could be a failed breakout. On top of that, it isn't the best signal bar. All those are just running through my head. There's just too many conflicting factors. So I just said, you know what? I'm just going to skip it. So I would have entered here if I was going to take that trade. Looks like I would have scalped out and it would have been fine. But I don't know that at the time. And I feel okay skipping that trade. Prices continue moving down. It does a first break. It breaks out. It breaks decisively below the EMA. It comes back up. I'm not sure what I'm looking at right now. I'm going to go ahead and remove this for now. So I do see a failed second entry short, and that's actually my first trade. So I see a new low here. I see a first entry short, and I see a second entry short. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. The second entry short looks like that, but it also has the EMA holding support. On top of that, it formed above the EMA. So I like that. And I also knew that this is a bullish uptrend. It had a break, and it wants to test this previous high. So I made one push up. This potentially could be a second push up. And on the second push up, it pulled back, but I'm thinking there might be enough power by the bulls and the buyers to bring it up to here. So I actually entered. I waited. I didn't want to take this candle immediately, so I waited for this candle to form to confirm it was a failed second entry short. It did, but it made a double top, so that made me hesitate. And I said, well, while this is forming, I said, I'm going to put my entry one tick above this guy. And that's where my entry was. It goes up, and I want to make sure I get out before the top of this guy because it might have a rejection. And that's where I got out. I think I got out right about where this purple candle is. So I was able to just quickly get a scalp. I don't have a runner. Prices continue moving up. It now oscillates, and it's respecting the EMA so far. Broke down below, and it's coming back up. I'm thinking it might come back and touch this pre-market trading range. And you can see that it's going down within this trend channel right now. I don't see any very good setups. I mean, you could say there's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, but this is below the EMA, and I'm not too keen on it. Potentially at the bottom of this trading range. The trading range really isn't confirmed yet. It's just had one move up and one move down. I need it to come back up a couple more times to confirm that this is going to be a resistance. Chops around. I do see the sub trading range because it looked like it's just consolidating in this mess, but there's nothing. I don't want to be involved in this because it's just too sideways, too ugly. These like you got dojis, you got big candles side by side. It just didn't feel very reassuring to take a trade there. Prices continue moving up. Now it touches the second time. So I think, okay, I first had, this small little trading range, this guy here. Then I actually extended it out and thinking, okay, there might be a resistance here. It's not holding very well, but then it does push back down. So then I also have this bottom part of my trading range touch here and two touches here. I'm thinking it's going to come back down. And lo and behold, it comes back down. But there was no setup to go short, and it already made these 7 candles red. So I'm thinking it might have a bounce. So I'm reluctant to take a long as well because there's no real setup, but I'm also not going to jump on a short. Looks like it bounced once. I do see a second entry long. So when I saw this, I said, okay, it's clearly within a trading range. I have a triple test. 1, 2, grouped together, 3. Now there's a breakout, and I saw this as one big leg down on this. It's one push up, and there's a potential second entry long setting up here. So this is actually where I took my second trade because I like the signal bar. It's at the low of this trading range, and it's a possible failed breakout with a triple test. And there's enough room to the EMA as well as enough room to the midline. So I entered right here. It's hard to see, but it's on this red candle. It's right where this little blue arrow is. I entered right at the close of this guy. I got filled, and I thought, okay, this is great. I should get a tick. It's going to move up. It comes down. On top of that, I see a higher low. That gives me more confidence. It's probably going to work out. It looks like it's consolidating. It has some support down here. It has this doji, makes me pretty nervous, and then it flashes down. Flashes down, hits my stop, which is right about here, and then continues to go down. So that trade unfortunately didn't work out, but I thought in context that this was a reasonably decent trade because this big green signal bar was pretty reassuring. It looked like it was at the bottom of the trading range, triple test, second entry long, first break of this guy. And yes, it wants to come down and test the bottom, but I thought it already did it after this break. So it broke out of this shortened trend channel, moved up and made a new low, and I thought everything had completed on this one green candle and is ready to come back up. Unfortunately, I was wrong. I do think that I read at least this setup somewhat correctly. If not, I'm not really sure where I might have misread it other than maybe just experience and context wise or something I'm missing. So I'm not too bummed about this trade being a red because I thought, in another setting, it might have just worked out because it looked like it was within a trading range. However, it didn't work out, even though the higher low made me feel a little bit more confident that I had made a good trade. It just even, I guess, even a high probability trade is going to stop you out sometimes. So prices continue moving down. I do see a second entry short right here. So it's a new low here. First entry short breaks one tick below this guy, then a second entry short. So when this second entry short actually formed, I thought this is a possible trade. It's a good signal bar. It's rejection off the EMA, and it's confirming the downward trend of this trend channel because it touched once, touched twice. It's its third touch, right? Excuse me. And I also thought it just came off the bottom though. So this is just right off the bottom. So take a second entry short. I was a little nervous. And plus, my chart showed it was one tick below, but it also on, I know other platforms, this might have been the low here. So it might have only been a first entry short. So knowing that I wasn't 100% sure, I wanted to find kind of a higher low confirmation to feel confident. So it turns out here, if I took the trade, it would have worked out. It rejected. I don't get a higher low. And then I do get a higher low here now, but it feels too late. It feels like too bullish. So it broke out of this trading trend channel. So I just wasn't sure. So if I counted this as a higher low, then this is for sure another higher low, and it flashes down. But at this point, I'm thinking it might be sideways consolidating. If I had taken this trade, I would have survived it because I would have taken the entry here. My exit would have been here, wouldn't have been stopped out yet, and likely would have gotten my scalp on this candle or on this candle. And then prices chop sideways, and this is kind of ugly now because it's got doji candles. It's two sideways, just moving left and right. I'm staying out of this. So this turns out probably would have been a decent trade, but I wasn't 100% sure. If this one had just formed a little bit better, maybe if this candle just ticked one more tick below, or this one had its tail one more tick higher, just so it's not one tick, but at least two, I think I would have counted it as a more clear first entry, second entry. But I saw it as first entry, second entry, but I also could see it as a first entry pulls down, and then maybe this is where the second entry would have been. Prices continue chopping left and right. I do see a failed second entry short here. So I saw a new low here, moves up, prices first entry short, comes all the way up, comes all the way down, moves up to the top of this trading range, breaks out, and technically this is where a second entry short's made. Comes down here, you would look for a failed second entry short, but it hasn't failed yet because it's an inside bar. This entire green bar sits inside the entire body or entire size of this candle. So that makes me take pause and wait. And I just wasn't very sure. EMA is holding. It also feels very congested though. So I'm just going to wait. I see this next candle, it breaks out above these two guys now. So it's clearly breaking out of this trading range, but I am concerned it could potentially be a fail breakout, even though it does have a bullish bias, because here it broke out here, undershoot, unless you dragged it all the way down to here, which is fine. So let's say I did that. It'd be like first entry short, second entry short failure, but I'm concerned since the overall sentiment at the moment is bearish because it went up, consolidated back down. I'm not sure what to make of it. So certainly if I was more aggressive, there's a potential trade here, but where would I be looking to get stopped out? I'm not 100% sure, but I do know it could be a fail breakout and come right back into this trading range. Turns out if I'd taken this trade even one tick above, I would have gotten filled, and most likely this would have gotten my scalp. If not, this one for sure would have gotten my scalp. And as you can see, it keeps moving up. So that would have been a good trade. But again, you don't know it at the time. Excuse me. And so then I draw this bottom trend channel going up. I have one touch, two touch, not confirmed yet. And then down here, I actually had a little bit tighter. I had one touch and an overshoot. Comes down, it breaks through, so it negates my concern of whether this is a valid channel or not. It also made a measured move, one channel up, consolidates, and then makes a second one up. So if you saw it as a visual first entry short, second entry short, you could have taken a trade here, except this candle wasn't very good. It's a very bad signal bar, so that would make me pause and not take that trade. So I saw it in real time, but I thought this doesn't look like anything worthwhile. But then you see a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. And when you see the second entry long, this is a very, very doji neutral candle. It's hard to know which way it's going to break. It just broke below the EMA, but it's not to say it might flash right back up because it didn't have a definitive close like way down here. So it shows that the buyers were still in play, pushing back some of the sellers. So the next candle certainly could have just flashed back up, but it doesn't. It flashes down. By the time this flashes down, it's too late to take this trade as a first entry long, second entry long, failure, because it already failed down here. It's entering the trading range. So it could be a fail breakout, but it felt like this wasn't even a good signal bar. It wasn't that good a signal bar in the first place for second entry long, and the failure just feels like a little extended, a little bit too risky. Turns out it would have worked. Comes back down, it chops through. Now I see this potential measured move here. One leg down to here, pulls back, and the second leg down. So I'm looking for a completion all the way down to this level. It also coincides with the midline. So it looks like it's chopping up. It doesn't touch the EMA. Let's just go ahead and clear this up. Finally, it comes back down and touches. But I don't see a good setup. You could say there's a new high here, first entry long. Then technically, there's a second entry long here. But this is a terrible signal bar. It's pretty far from the EMA. Overall sentiment is bearish. Turns out it would have worked. It comes back and touches. Now you're thinking, okay, well, here's a new low, first entry short, potential second entry short, still potential second entry short. And then here's your second entry short completes and flashes down. But it also made a new recent low. So it bounced off. I'm not too sure it's going to come back down or continue going back up. So I don't do anything. Sit on my hands. I do see right here, if you count this as a new low, first entry short, second entry short, but I also saw it as a potential see. One visual, one leg up, pull back, potential second leg up, but this is a bad signal bar. This one confirms a visual second entry short, but then I saw a potential failed second entry short here. So this is kind of like, okay, I'm reversing gears so quickly, right? But I'm not really sure because on this second entry short, there's, it could come down and reject down to the lows, but here I'm already making a little bit of a leap by grouping this as one leg up, pull back a second leg up. So it wasn't 100% confirmed. Then it pulls down and I see a failed second entry short. So I see this as grouped as one. First entry short, second entry short, and then failure. So when this failure occurred, unless I had a pretty good idea the failure while the life of this candle is going on, take it on the engulfing, one tick above here, which would require me to have more experience because not only would I want it to break above this candle, I'd want it to break above the EMA. And it does during the life of this candle. And it finally closes up here. So after the close or near the close of this candle, you have to make a decision. If I want to enter this, would I enter one tick above or would I enter one tick above the original, placement here, right? Maybe at the EMA. I wasn't sure. So it's like a visual failed second entry short. Like the safe thing would be if you wanted real confirmation that it's going to work, you would probably put it one tick down here and hope the next candle comes back, picks you up because with enough room to get up to here. But I wasn't sure. And so it did make two clean legs up. I just said, you know what? I'm just going to sit back and just watch because there's not enough to make me feel warm and fuzzy that it's a high probability trade. But let's say I did take this trade. I would have put it one tick above here, right where the EMA is, and hope this next candle is going to pick me up. So right here, it almost picks me up. And then, of course, it leaves without me. So to enter this trade, you would have had to have either definitely not one tick above. You'd have to maybe put at the close of this candle, which would be up here, or the high, one tick above. But that would be nerve-wracking because this is such a strong candle. Yes, it could keep going up, but you're not 100% sure if the EMA is going to force you back down. Reason being is that EMA was holding prices down a little bit. It was a first break, so no clear indication that it would do that in the next move. But clearly it works. It flashes up. I don't see another good entry. Keeps chopping. And right around here, I had to leave. And so I didn't come back to trade. And by the time I got back, the market was closed. But I want to review the charts just for good practice. I see a new high, first entry long. I see a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. And so you could also count as one leg up, first entry short, pull back, maybe a second entry short potentially. I also saw one measured leg up. It goes into this trading trend channel. I still don't see a good setup. You can say there's a new high, first entry long, that's all you get. Comes up, flashes up. I don't know if there was any news item that occurred, but now it starts to float up. And I'm wondering, wow, this is a very big bullish move now. This could be seen as two legs, one leg up. It kind of consolidates, but it also makes like kind of a middle gradual leg and the second leg up. So it gets to the high here, and I'm wondering if it's going to have a rejection because it's far from the EMA. It made two clean legs up, but this measured move could also be a little bit higher, maybe up to there, which means this guy would go right here. So clearly hasn't made the measured leg in this instance. It comes up, it pulls back down. I still don't see a good setup. There's a first entry long here. Pulls up. It makes triple test or double top. Here I would have considered it, a double top, maybe even triple test, but then you still don't have a good setup. I draw the bottom of this channel here, and I just arbitrarily put the top here of the first swing is. Seeing, okay, now there's a confirmation. Well, not a confirmation, but it creates the touch of the second time. And I have a confirmation at the bottom because I have one touch, two touch, three touch. Breaks out, it's overshoot, but this is so strong so far. And it's also getting close to the end of the day. Consolidates up here, pulls back. It doesn't get back to the EMA. You could say there's a new high here, first entry long, and then you could argue there's a second entry long here, but this is so sideways. I would just have grouped this as maybe one big move, first entry right here. And so then it breaks up, it resets the count. You don't see anything. Here it just gets really choppy, and now you're down to the last 5 minutes of the day. I certainly don't want to take a trade here and be stuck with it. Kind of how it rolled out. So it was a pretty interesting day. There was decent volume. Unfortunately, the setups, at least from what I could see, they weren't all there. So it was a little more challenging. I got one green, then one red, and then potentially, some other reasonably good setups were found, but I didn't take them, unfortunately. So that's how I saw the charts today.